Recording in progress.
The commission meeting this morning. We'll start off with roll call.
Hanker.
Yes.
Betts.
Yes.
Meek.
Yes.
Earthman.
Yes.
Hampton.
Yes. Okay, so we'll go right into public comment and correspondence. Do we have any public that would like to speak today? I don't think so, so we'll move on. Introduction of Fire Department Career Track 2 recruit Adam Hilgard.
We got Adam right here. I'll just kind of go through a little bit about Adam. Adam started at the Marshfield Fire and Rescue Department on July 2nd, and is a Career Track 2 recruit. He is currently enrolled in North Central Technical College for his paramedic certification course and will be completing the program on December 2025. While he's on Career Track 2, he'll be working on the CPAT and attending paramedic class at NTC. In order to move the recruit track 1 assigned to Blue Shift, he will need to obtain a valid CPAT and his national registry for paramedic. Adam does come to us with a wealth of experience in the fire service, as he's served for the last 22 years with the Richfield Parkland Volunteer Fire Department. During that time, he's been a firefighter, a lieutenant, and a captain. He holds many fire certification and has accrued extensive experience while serving in those departments. Adam also has been busy building a life outside the fire service, as he owns his own diesel mechanic service called Ace Farm and Diesel Medic. His extensive knowledge of diesel engines will greatly enhance the department's long-term goals of maintaining our fleet. He is accompanied by his wife, Tanya. Tanya's back here. And please help me in welcoming Adam to the Marshfield family.
Yeah.
Great.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, next item. Fire Department MSDS online update presented by Deputy Chief Altman.
Yeah, I'll start off quick. Last month, we had a few questions on MSDS online. Deputy Chief Altman is tasked with that in the department, and I'm asking him to come in.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. I did review your guys' PFC meeting last month. I saw there's a few questions on DS Online. I did contact Commissioner Pinker, got some clarifying questions through that. So I was asked to present back a little bit more of what it is. To be honest with you, this was actually driven the city side originally. There's a whole big thing that kind of happened in the background, some confusion of who was part of it, who wasn't part of it. And what we eventually came down to is I met with Sean, forgot his last name. So he's a rep with the Municipal Electric Association. So one of the questions I was asked last week was, is this the Marshfield Utilities thing? No, but also kind of yes, because the only reason that we can be part of this program is because we have a municipal electric or municipal utility. If we did not have a municipal utility, we couldn't even be part of this program. So that is one of the benefits to the city is for that. So that's why it's coming from the Electrical Association. It has nothing to do actually with the utility though itself. It's completely separate. What this program does is it allows us to have an e-binder for all of our MSDS sheets. All of our MSDS sheets, we currently have 3 binders in our washroom, and those are updated probably about a yearly. We go through and pull out new ones, or pull out old ones, put in new ones. Now, with that being said, one of the questions that was being said or asked was, what are we going to do with those binders? Do we have to keep them? Do we get rid of them? So I didn't have a great answer. If you go and try to search that yourself, there's not a great clear answer. So I actually just called OSHA and talked to the Madison office of OSHA. They told me that the OSHA ruling is you have to maintain MSDS sheets or SDS sheets that are readily available 24 hours a day and expect for emergency. So then I specifically asked, does that mean I have to maintain books? He said, no, not necessarily. If you can guarantee your internet will never go down and all the computers will work. And I said, well, I can't guarantee that. He goes, then you're going to need to keep the books. And so my plan moving forward is For the SDS sheets, for the in-house, just chemical safety stuff, I would like to move forward and have this because it's going to have updated SDS sheets. So what happens is this company gets them from the manufacturers and then they push them out to people and then they notify us if there's updates. When I get updates, I just print it, put it in our binder, get rid of the old one. And at first I was a little skeptical if that was really worth the headache going through putting everything in the e-binder. I know there's a cost associated with it. If I'm already maintaining binders, what's the purpose of paying somebody to also do it? But where this program really shines is not only in my job capacity in my shift commander, but I'm also the hazmat coordinator, so the hazmat team leader. One thing that this program does offer is it has over 2 million chemicals within it, and we can search those chemicals. So in the event a carrier, if CN has an incident on the rail and their mobile data terminals aren't working, or it's 3 miles of facility, that's where the engine is, we have the ability to pull up this program, type in what the chemical is, and get the SDS sheets off of it. Even though we don't have it in this station, we don't have it even in the city, but because it's coming through, we have the capability to look it up. And that's where I really see us using it a lot more. Luckily, we don't have a whole lot of chemical exposure in the workplace, but on the hazmat response side of it, I think is where it's really going to be beneficial for us. So really that's it in a nutshell. If you guys are okay with this moving forward, what I want to do is we just recently put together a health and safety committee, and we're going to start transitioning our books into an e-binder and then updating the books as we're doing it, pulling out old stuff, putting it in, and then putting it on all of our apparatus vehicle or computers for hazmat. But that's pretty much it in a nutshell. If you have any questions.
Okay, I guess, thank you for that. Does that clarify for everybody what they need to know about this MSDS? Yeah. You guys are okay with them moving forward with keeping the online MSDS? Okay. Thank you. Moving on, financial update for EMS, presentation by Finance Director Zelensky, but you don't look like Zelensky.
Right, as well as you. But either way, I'm sorry for the lack of information provided for the packet. That's not our fault as far as communication to you guys and having something with your in paper in front of you today. I intend to rectify that and give that to you this afternoon. I am sorry about that. So I'm going to go off the notes that we had been sharing back and forth to create somewhat of a presentation for you, and just go from there. So I'll read from a memo that she was working on. The city's audit for the fiscal year of 2024 has been finalized, and she would like to provide a summary of key financial findings and updates pertaining to the Emergency Medical Services Fund, along with a brief review of the police and fire department financial performance. So 2024 highlights. EMS fund closed the year with a positive cash balance of $343,905 as of December 31, 2024. This included supplemental tax funding of $340,000, around $340,000, comprised primarily of $170,000 worth of federal ARPA funds for the ambulance, $171,000 of local tax levy dedicated to EMS debt service, which means paying off the loan of the station, or at least the EMS portion of the loan of the station, with a total of $507,000 levied over the last few years. The accounts receivable, or bills that we are expecting to be paid from others, charges for services, and operating expenses reached a peak in 2022 and have since stabilized in 23 and 24. Outstanding debt remains $600,000 on the portion of the principal balance for the station, with a final payment scheduled for 2029. EMS fund's unrestricted net position continues to trend upward. This is a good sign. Ending 2024 at $1.3 million. So looking forward to 2025 and beyond. A successful referendum has authorized the hiring and retention of 2 firefighter paramedics, effective January 1, 2026, to restore EMS staffing levels to 11.67 FTEs, matching 2021 levels. The projected year-end cash balance for 2025 is approximately $500,000 to $550,000. So currently sitting at 343, moving projected wise to 500 or 550 for this year. So a good trend still. $408,000 in capital expenses are planned for 2026, meaning just barely have enough to cover those capital expenditures. The city does not anticipate levying additional funds, but is still open to discussion on that item for 2026. As part of long-term financial planning, the commission should evaluate the need for a rate increase, consider rates based on internal financial position, the EMS fund, rather than comparative studies. However, we've done that as well with DC Vegas and our EMS MC crew. If there's questions on that, please let me know. Otherwise, like I said, I'll follow up and send you some data afterwards.
Anybody have any questions? I think for sure it would be nice to be able to see this on paper. I noticed that it was missing from the packet, and I was like,
Yeah.
I just find it a little easier for me to, when I can see it. So I'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's
But it sounds like from where the fund was to where it's going, it's in a much better position.
Yeah, this is way better than coming to you like in 2022.
Yeah. So, and I know you guys have been working really hard to rectify that situation, and we appreciate that.
Jordan, would it be possible to get a bar graph or a line graph to show where we've been this fund over the last 5 years?
Yes. Yeah, as far as we can do bar graphs for cash position, unrestricted net position, those things are important. So the difference between those two are unrestricted net position is kind of like what you theoretically have in your savings account, right, to spend. It mostly or primarily includes accounts receivable up until recently, where we started realizing that cash position is really what you should have a little bit of, other than just accounts receivable, which means promises to pay versus actual cash in the bank. And so there's a 10-year trend actually that we were working off of, which I thought was going to be included in your packet, which I will send to you. I'm sorry. But yes, we can include a line graph on that too.
I've got one question. Jordan, can you just give us an update on the deficit from 2022, how the city is handling that in terms, is there it transfers from EMS, or are they just holding and don't do? Can you give us a little bit more background on that?
So the deficit from 22 is kind of more from a standpoint of we didn't have an allowance for doubtful accounts for many years prior. We took that transaction into account in 2022 with a roughly $800,000 to $900,000 hit to bad debt allowance. And so that impacted the 2022 financial year significantly. And from there, what ended up happening was the hiring freeze essentially, which reduced expenses on the EMS fund, which helped trend with revenue generation compared to expenses. So your net income for that fund increased because of the hiring freeze. So, and then the thought process of as we matriculate the employees, as they basically become more experienced, they move into the fire department and protection and prevention funds. So keeping the lower expensed employees in that fund, we're kind of protecting that expense, keeping it as low as we can, and then generating more revenue through contract negotiation with townships, with the clinic, being very aggressive with our EMSMC partners, taking on debt service levy, which is the transfer that you're talking about, Randy. So we levy debt. Many people look at their taxes and they don't realize there's two things inside of that. There's a portion of general levy and a portion for debt levy. That debt levy piece is what we utilized and transferred over to the EMS fund, which was kind of dragging down cash balance. So that was the 171,000 last year and 500,000 over the last 3 years. So that has helped build that balance back as well. So does that help answer your question?
Yeah, it does. You know, I think in your commentary, when you follow up with some numbers in terms of your presentation, it'd be good to have another review of how that's actually worked, especially in the terms of the allocation of cost to EMS budget. That's important, what you just referenced. And then also, you know, the allocation of debt service to the EMS side of it. I think that's better, especially even if there's a newer commissioner or for the public in terms of transparency. I think it's good to see that and review that. So thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, we'll leave it at that. Move on. Thanks, Jordan. Staff updates. Marshfield Fire and Rescue Fitness Work Group update.
Yep, I'll take that one. We had a meeting on June 19th where Tracy Talker came in. You'll find in your packs or some information that I gave you this morning. Basically, is the presentation that she gave just kind of gives an overview of what a fit for duty test would be, and what that functional test should come to. We are looking at meeting sometime in August to discuss the next steps of the process. So as we bring that work group back together, we're going to be trying to put together what the future should be for that program. And that's the update that I have here. That may take any questions you may have on it.
Okay, so at this point, we really don't have anything specific to public safety.
We do not. No, this is just an update to keep you in the loop of what's going on.
And then this handout will be sort of a template of what
Correct. Yep.
that we should be.
Yes, that was basically her presentation to us, and it basically stated what should be in there, what we should be looking for, and kind of what you're seeing in front of you.
Has there been anybody on the commission that's been working with you guys? So
Both, we have Commissioner Meeks and Commissioner Kirschman.
okay. Do you guys have any input as far as what's going on or what you're seeing, what you like, what you don't like?
I don't know, Steve, do you want to go first or?
Yeah, I think overall it's a good idea, and it's a work in progress. Nothing's been finalized. I don't believe so. As far as the criterion is a draft at this point. At least that's my opinion of it. Some of the stuff that Tracy shared with us, I think, is pretty vital from legal standpoint and other aspects. So it was good to meet with her.
You know, just to echo Steve's comments, I think there's three fundamental things, you know, that we're going to have to determine. This, you know, is it a test or is it just a wellness check in terms of capacity for the firefighters to be able to do their job? The conflict is, you know, at least in the initial draft, is it's age weighted, which you can't do. Everybody's got to have the same capacity to do the work. So I think by working with Tracy, we'll be able to get something that's a validated test of some sort, or fitness function, to determine that each of the officers can actually do the job, which is important. But I do want to compliment the FD on looking at trying to get into this wellness issue and make sure everyone has the capacity. But I think there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of making it legal and have it represent what their daily work is, or the capacity to actually do the job through various functions. So, functional strength, capacity, aerobic, and otherwise, that's all going to have to be worked on. I know, just from a history lesson, if we go back, we did have, prior to COVID, Tracy had developed a job function test that she worked with staff on and members to reflect closely what the job is. And I think we're going to have to dust that off and take a look at that too. So, I think we're really early in the process. And, and in terms of Commissioner Pinker's question, I really think it's going to take some time to do this. I mean, I would like to have something by year end, but I don't know if that's realistic or not.
Yeah, thank you guys, and thanks for being involved in it. So this is just a very, very rough draft of what something could possibly look like, is what I'm understanding.
Yeah, it's a concept that's got to be developed.
Okay, any other comment or question? Okay, Marshfield Fire and Rescue Training Center update.
We met on July 8th, 2025. We had Madam Mayor there. Commissioner Hanson was there, City Administrator Steve Barr, and basically just talked about a high focus for that training center site and looking at whether that was going to be a fit for the current training center site. What they wanted to do is propose an idea of possibly being able to look outside in the event that it wouldn't fit. Their first priority would be, number one, to look at the site and make sure it's going to fit that site. The second priority would be to look for a different site if that wasn't going to be something that would fit the future of the training facility. Pretty much that was at the end of that. That was what we came up with. If you have anything else you'd want to add to that, Commissioner?
No, not really. But being able to meet with a gentleman from SEH, that's the company, right? That's right, SEH. It was interesting to hear his thoughtfulness and his true concern for the project and making sure that it's going to fit long term. I don't think you always get that from people that are going to develop something for you. They're just kind of like, well, we're going to do this, we're going to take your money and run. But his thoughtfulness in the process was interesting to hear. It was welcome. So I appreciate the opportunity to be there. In the land, but doesn't have a lot of impact. It was good to be there.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hanson, just got a couple staff updates if I could.
Okay.
Yep. Since the last meeting we had, we did hold our first PC event, which was the fishing with the cop, a cast with the cop up at Thomas Park. It was phenomenal. I think just about every kid caught a fish. So that was cool. We had some help with DNR. And also Parks and Rec was up there too, giving us a hand. So that went off great. The next piece event is going to be Dunk the Chief, which I was voluntold for at Up City Days. And there's some other folks in the room that will also be joining me, along with Sheriff Becker and Lieutenant Dean from the Sheriff's Department. So we're looking forward to that. All the proceeds for that event will be going to the Boys and Girls Club. So we're looking forward to that. And quick building update, we've been having, you'll see in our activities, a slew of meetings with BKV. We've had a couple, we had one yesterday, and that process is moving along very quickly. So far, Travis and I are very impressed with BKV and their communication, and we've got meetings scheduled all the time, so it's nice to see the progress. We're close to having a a rough schematic as far as room sizes and layout. That's coming along quickly. So we hope to have some things you can look at in the near future. And that's it.
I'm disappointed I'm gonna be out of town for the dump the chief thing.
Well, it would cost you $25 a throw.
Same as you.
That wouldn't bother me at all. I think that's gonna be fun. Cool. Okay, so moving on. Approval of minutes of the June 12th, 2025 regular meeting.
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? The lady gets me. Okay, approved. Approval of fire department bills.
Thank you. There were two sets of bills. The first set was signed by Commissioner Schutz on June 25th. The second set was signed by Commissioner Baker on July 9th. All bills seem fairly routine this month. I may take any questions you may have.
Any comment or question? Chief?
No.
Should we get a motion to approve? A motion. Motion to approve? Second?
Second.
And we need a roll call on this one, please.
Baker,
Yes.
Schutz,
Yes.
Meek,
Yes.
Gershman,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes. Approval of fire department bills. Oh. Yeah. Approval of police department bills, I'm sorry.
Thank you. In your packets, there's two sets of bills. First was signed by Commissioner Hanson on June 25th, other by Commissioner Gershman on July 9th. Not much to note in here, however, on page 10D, statewide claims, there's a reimbursement for liability deductible. This had occurred when we arrested an individual who resisted with us in a parking lot area. And during that resistance, we dented a car that belonged to just a citizen. So our insurance, that's the deductible for our insurance for that, to repair those damages. Nothing else really stuck out to me, but I'd be happy to answer any questions before your approval.
On the same page, down at the bottom, we are replacing 3 fuel pumps.
Yep.
Are those the Dodge units?
Not units. And Travis, do you have this a known problem from Dodge?
Yeah, we've replaced a number of them more than once. The good news, or hopefully good news, is that the new pumps have a new part number on them. And so theoretically, Dodge has rectified that with the recent ones that were getting replaced, and hopefully we won't have any future problems.
Another question about that. Now, these are the SUVs, right?
Yes.
Have you heard anything from agencies that operate chargers that they're having similar?
Yeah, it's related more to the motors. The Hemis were the biggest issues. That's why we've switched to the 6 cylinders. There's an additional cost of switching manufacturers with all the interior equipment.
Yeah.
It's all fitted, so I think it's probably the best to stay with this until they switch the dimensions of the Durango at least, and then we can start looking at an upgrade.
And I'll just make a quick comment on that. You know, as far as when it comes to vehicles, you can pick out any manufacturer. Every dealership has a hoist, no matter what manufacturer they are, because they all break down, they all have problems. Fords have timing chain issues. So I think sometimes it's easy to say, well, look at all this work we got to put into the Dodges because, you know, that's Chrysler and that they break down all the time. Well, that's the same for every manufacturer. So I just, you know, we can pick on one or the other, but they're all going to have an issue. So this stuff just happens, and it's just part of how the stuff's produced. So thank you. Can we get a motion to approve the bills if there's no other discussion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
And a roll call, please.
Pinker.
Yes.
Schutz.
Yes.
Meek.
Yes.
Hirschman.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes. Fire department activities, training reports, and correspondence packet.
I'll pick that one. This morning, or throughout the month, you can see on 11F, we've been, if you look at the comparison of total department response by month, 2024 to 2025, you'll see that we've actually been trending up this year. We only had 1 month that was actually below last year. So definitely seeing that trend go up. That's something we see across the board, across the United States. So we're consistent with the rest of the United States in that area. One other thing that we really have been working on is some of the training we've been doing with our partners. Hewitt Fire Department came in and we had utilized the training center to do some of our ISO and NFPA training down there. This one happened to be on water shuttles and getting draft with a large engine from a source, which would be a porta tank. So it was a very good training for all of our personnel. And then they were able to train on our ladders to really get a feel for that. What it does for our mutual aid partners, it allows us to work together. So when we get to a call, we actually have the ability to work with them and understand, they understand us, we understand them. And again, that's where that training center really comes into play as being that area where we can come together in that bigger scheme of things. So it's a good work in progress. Overall, I guess the rest of the month looked pretty routine to me. I can definitely answer any question the commission may have.
Going down to the activity on 24th. You chief of the town of McFlurry, who is that?
Chief Kevin Schmidt.
And then down on the 4th and 5th, is the great shift training, 10 suicide, 10 lapse, and suspicious packages. In the future, if you have reports of that, could you let me know? Because I'd like to sit in on some of those.
Absolutely, we can certainly let you know.
I just have one quick comment. Chief Miller went to Las Vegas.
Yes, that actually was.
That is fairly routine going to Vegas.
Well, that one, thank you for bringing that up. That's actually a good point. That one was paid for by the NFSA. No money came from the Marshfield Fire and Rescue Department. I actually took vacation over that week. So it's just something that's kind of an added bonus. We left it in there just for the fact that it's something that we do on and off duty and make sure that we got, the mission of the Marshfield Fire the foremost part of our department. So thank you for bringing it up. But yeah, it probably isn't really routine.
You forgot because it was all business.
Yeah. So
Happens in Vegas.
days and days. Yep.
All right, thank you for that update.
You're very welcome.
Okay, update on emergency management storm siren phone service bill.
I could probably take some of this here. So there was a question last meeting with with that particular bill. And actually, I'm glad that the question came up because it seems like this is something that probably was routinely paid that just has been passed down from administration to administration. And at some point, there's a possibility that line may not even be used for the last couple of years. So we're still investigating if that is used or not.
No, I can give a little bit of an update on that.
Okay.
We've actually traced it back. We went to dispatch. We found out they don't really use any of the phone lines. We went down. We actually looked at the police department. We worked with the IT department. IT department actually oversees the bills, so they have to go through and they have to cancel that bill to get that taken care of. And we found out in talking with Merkel as well that it just isn't one that's active. It is at Washera and Carmen is where that one was traced back to. That's a storm siren right there. With that storm siren, that's actually on a radio signal at this point. So somewhere along the line, through communication and multiple hands in that, I just believe it was something that was overseen. The city's also having some problems with other lines too, and AIM is trying to work on some of those too. There's probably about 6 or 7 lines that are out there. They're called a potable line because they're just the 2 copper lines. So it's just a real simple copper line. Now we've gone to the radio signal. So we canceled that bill, and we found through our testing the last couple times that really the storm sirens are working the way they're supposed to. So we think we actually found it. So I appreciate you bringing that forward. Something that helped us to kind of dig into it a little bit further, and then we can save some money here.
And there was a question as to why, that bill may not have been seen prior. I did talk with Cindy, and they actually were in the packets, but they were in the stacks of bills. But they would be coded different because that would come out of the emergency management budget. Emergency management, from my understanding, and again, this is passed on from administration to administration. So the emergency management is a smaller bill, but actually, even though the police and fire departments are a member of it, it involves all the city departments, IT, wastewater, the mayor is involved in it, finance, everybody in the city and utilities is involved. I think that we ended up at the police department managing that because in 1997 or so, or 98, we had the EOC. When we finished the basement, we ran the emergency management. And then when this building was built, it transferred to here, but the budget never transferred. So that budget kind of governs anyone in that management unit that needs to go to training or anything like that would come out of that budget. I think that we just handle it because we have the facilities too. I don't know what HAP's opinion is on if PFC has to approve those. My guess is that we do it because of the EOC and that it's actually a city responsibility. So it's confusing in that remarks. We were going to reach out to HAP. He is busy, and we can try to get a clearer answer on that hopefully by next meeting.
Any comment or question for the chiefs? Okay, thanks, guys. Keep us updated. Next item on the agenda, review and approval of fire department policies and procedures.
I do have one policy and procedure that needs to be pulled. Remove procedure 501, which would be hazardous materials decontamination. We need to get more eyes on that one. Unfortunately, we got the wrong condition in there, and we just need to make sure we go back. Apologize for the having this on the back.
Okay, so we would have to have a motion to approve with the exception of procedure 501.
I'll make a motion to approve if there's no questions.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Pinker,
Yes.
Schutz, Meek,
Yes.
Hirschman,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes. Police department activities, training reports, correspondence.
Thank you. In your package, you'll see a list of activities. You may notice that it's a little bit lighter on training because it's typical during the summer months. There's vacations and typically the schools are providing less training during these months. We did engage in quite a few community activities, worked in buildings on city meetings, but nothing seems to be out of the ordinary. But I'd be happy to answer any questions before they're placed on file.
I just have one comment. On 14C, is there a way we can just maybe expand the charts a little bit in terms of just having a year to date, just be able to compare throughout the year and expect it at the end of the year. Or maybe there's a way that we can just add in a third column to be able to see a more complete picture.
You clarify what you want in the third column, because I guess we do the year-to-date with the black column. What would you like in the third column?
Well, you could do the anticipated year end based on activity year to date. I mean, I just wonder if you could just I think it'd be just a little, there's got to be something in the software we could actually show what the trends look like throughout the year.
Okay, we don't have the software that does it currently, but let me look in to see if there's something that other departments are using, or I'll try to find something for you.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's a little way to provide some additional detail to the commission in terms of, activities and such. And I'm not faulting you on the presentation. I'm just wondering if there's just a way to add some additional detail.
I can look into it.
Thank you.
I think maybe what Randy is possibly looking for, if I'm wrong, correct me. But something like this, where you have 2024 lumped into all one, where the fires got each month of last year comparatively to the months of this year. Is that correct, Randy? Am I understanding?
Yeah, you presented it much better than I did. That is really ideally what we're looking for, is more comprehensive data visually, and then be able to see throughout the year.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comment? Okay, thank you, Chief. We'll move on. Review and approval of proposed 2026 Fire and Rescue Department budget.
All right, thank you for allowing me to present the 2026 Fire and Police Fire Protection Budget. This is a team effort. I just want to kind of point out, this is a big team effort. This actually starts at the beginning of the year. We actually start back in probably January timeframe, and we start building these budgets. A lot of our personnel look at things that we need within the department, and they put in budget requests. We as a team at the top, meaning Deputy Chief Jacobs, Deputy Chief Barnes, and Lori, sit down and we basically go over all this information to make sure that we understand what we're looking at. We really bring that back to our guiding document, which we are still working on the strategic plan, but really try to bring it back to that into the mission of the Marshfield Fire and Rescue Department. To see that we are meeting all the needs of the city and making sure that we can protect the city in the rightful manner that it needs to be. When you look at the fire protection, fire prevention, emergency management budgets, they're considered to be part of the 101 general fund, which is part of the tax base. All three budgets saw an overall increase of $192,136.82, and that was about a roughly 4.74%. Out of all of that, probably less than 1% is actually stuff that's within the department's control. That means all the stuff that you'll see, and if you go to page 15M, and just the top of 15N, you're going to find that all the stuff that's in white is pretty much outside. That's dictated by the contract. That's also dictated by any raises that may be for employees. So a lot of that is dealt with that. We also look at retirement, Social Security, health insurance, dental insurance. Those are all things that come out of that budget. Again, on top of that, sometimes we look at telecommunications, electricity. All those things are outside of our control. One thing that we did, and you'll find this document, I basically gave you an updated document that looks like this one in your packet or this on your desk. There was one correction that we had, and we found that we had more revenue that came in through the state fire insurance tax. Typically, that's been $90,000 historically over the last few years, and this year it actually went up to $98,031.18, which gave us $8,031.18 in addition to what we had previously. That is the DSPS 2% dues. That's where that information comes from, or that's where that money comes from. That's all from the insurance companies, and then basically that files off from our audit each year. Our audit basically comes in where the 2%, or the auditor from DSPS comes in, they look through all of our training, they look through all of our records to make sure our budget is being spent correctly, And they look through, I think, a few other things that they basically look at and make sure that that's all coming together the way it needs to. And that's where that comes from. So that's a little bit bigger than just being a state fire insurance tax that's given back to us. There's a lot more that goes into that whole formula, which really brings our overall budget and how we operate our department. That's all dictated by DSPS as well. There's another line item, and that would be on the second page of that document. It's going to be the 52,500 repair and maintenance. What ended up happening there is I just had an error in the column. It didn't add up the way it was supposed to in the spreadsheet. All the other information was correct in there. I'm going to basically kind of walk through this budget a little bit and tell you what some of the finer points are of the budget and why we have it. Like I said, that area up on the top from 15M to 15N, that's all going to be outside of our control. Really, it's basically dictated by contracts and everything that goes in that. If you get into 52,500, this is all of our maintenance, the maintenance for the department. And that's going to be on 15N all the way through to 15Q. One thing that was asked one thing that we really were asked to do by finance and by the city administrator was to really clarify what each one of these budgets are. And that's why you see the added detail in here. That was a direction that came from them. I think it also opens to a very transparent budget, so we can tell exactly what's going in each one of those budget line items. Someone can read fairly easy what those things are. If you go down, basically the only change we saw in there was SCBA and mask maintenance. That is our masks that go inside a fire. So a firefighter wears a mask that goes along with a self-contained breathing apparatus. We have someone that comes in and has to maintain those on an annual basis. They look at those, they look at the mask, they basically make sure everything's working the way it needs to. And then there's a cost for doing that. So the cost went up on that. I did take one of the line items and put it into there at the SCBA mask maintenance line item. And you'll see the one below, it says extra face piece. I actually just rounded that into that budget to make sure we captured it. Annual elevator maintenance, again, another one that's basically throughout the state of Wisconsin. We have to do that. That's part of the building code, and we have to make sure we maintain that elevator. The last one, the grease interceptor maintenance, that one is something that hadn't been put in there. This basically is under municipal code section 14-72, basically says we have to take care of that on an annual basis. We have to pump it 4 times a year. That's the cost of doing business for that. That would pretty much be it in that part of the budget. If we move on to contractual services, that's going to be from page 15Q through 15S. In that area, the one that we saw an adjustment in was going to be the annual service agreement for the MFCAS system. That one is outside of our control. We basically have to make sure that the towers in the area are all working the way they're supposed to, and that's part of the maintenance on those towers. The last item in there would be the Westfall grant writing service. As you know, each year it seems to be we have a tougher and tougher budget year. One thing that we are trying to do and we are really working hard on is our grant writing services. The Westfall grant writing service, they actually give us the ability to see all the different grants that are available to us, and they help us to formulate some parts of that. And they will also write one major grant per year. They will also help us with other grants if we need to, but there'll be an additional charge outside of what that price would be. You're going to find that in this budget. You'll find it in the fire prevention budget, and you'll also find it in the EMS budget. It's a line item that goes through all three. All three budgets would utilize that line item, so you will see it in all three. And like I said, they basically help us with the grants. If you go down to 53,100 office supplies, postage and UPS, basically we just saw everything go up in cost there outside of our control. Once you get to 53,200 publications and subscription dues, that's going to be 15T through 15B. The item that I saw, basically we just had the North Central Fire Chiefs Association. That's a group that we belong to, the North Central. Basically, we get a lot of updates from there from multiple different areas, and the fees went up a little bit on that one. $55, that's up out of our control. If you get into the travel department head, which is going to be on 15B, that's my travel budget. There's a few items that are in there. One thing that we saw, I didn't see anything for our deputy chiefs, and basically I broke some of that away from there and put it down into the other travel where it was supposed to be. I basically rounded that one out, but we did see an overall increase of 338 in that budget. The other thing that we had, and one thing I went to last year, which helped me as a new fire chief, was one of the basically the National Fire Academy came down to Sun Prairie and they gave a presentation on how to be a new fire chief. It was very helpful in the process of working as a fire chief. So I put that one in here. Then we also have the Fall Education Conference and the Spring Education Conference. Both of those conferences are very good as far as the updates and the information we get as chiefs. To understand what the legal framework is out there, what's affecting our departments, what's going to be happening as trends in the fire service. So we felt that those were strong ones to put in there. There was a slight increase in mileage as far as 70 cents per mile. So that one, basically we upped that by $18 with an overall $338 on that overall budget. If you look at the travel staff, this one is going to be a little more comprehensive, but again, this goes back to our mission of what the Marshfield Fire and Rescue is. We need to provide training for our staff. And, one thing that we've really been working on is our fire officer training. With fire officers, they not only have to take care of fires and situations as far as the incident command system, but they also need to know how to take care of the personnel back here as well. I think we've done a great job of making sure that we've got the tactics in place in the past, but I don't think we've done a great job as far as making sure that we can take care of our personnel the way we need, understanding how to coach, when to take care of different things. And I feel like we've really done some part of that. You'll see those three down on 15Y. You're going to see the Sawdust City Fire Expo, which actually gets into a lot of the tactics and stuff for fire officers, Eau Claire Leadership Course, and also Introduction to Municipal Response to Aircraft. That's a little bit different. Sorry, those two were the ones that were for officer. Another thing that we've seen is down at the airport, we've got larger aircraft coming in. I really felt like, as I talked to our staff here at the department, they don't have much of a background. It's a specialty area when it comes to large aircraft or larger aircraft. So I really felt like Introduction to Municipal Response to Aircraft Accidents was a good class to bring here. And one I feel like I'd really like to, I would emphasize that we should really make sure we maintain. A couple other things that we saw in here, towards the top at 15W, the State Fire Chief Conference. I didn't have anything in for the deputy chiefs. That was actually all up under the department head budget. And I basically put that in here for our deputy chiefs to also get the updates that they need and to make sure they have the information for the legal framework what we have. That is also covered under SPS 33007. Basically, if we have officers in the department, they need continued education. And I think that meets that for our deputy chief. And then Wisconsin State Fire Chiefs Winter in Service, I put something in there for them as well. Again, not all the deputy chiefs can attend the other one, so sometimes I would have them go to a different one so they're getting some form of education on an annual basis to make sure we're rounding them up. Some mileage went up, and you'll see those mileage increases. And then what that I didn't see in the past was firefighter 1 and 2 certification. As you know, we never really had to deal with this in the past, but now we've got firefighters that we're hiring in career track 2, and basically we put that in here to make sure that we can cover the cost of studying them. And that will cover all the books, the fees, and things like that. So there should be no problem there. Driver operator aerial certification and driver operator pumper certification, I split those two. Basically we had 4 people in for aerial, and what I did is I said we're going to send 2 per year and then 2 for the aerial. So there's really no increase in cost there. All I did was split the 2 budgets and put a line item in there for what we're actually doing. So as I kind of went through the budget, I found, just over time, we've had multiple people looking at these budgets over the years, and I had an opportunity to look through the framework of this and kind of round some of those things together. That pretty much takes care of the travel staff budget. Once we get down to operating supplies, it does a fairly good job of breaking down everything. As far as the information, we didn't really see much of an increase in this budget. The only area that you'd see the increase would be on page 15 double F. One thing we identified, we actually had dorm room dressers upstairs. They're in the dorm rooms. We have to basically replace those. I had some that were falling apart and we couldn't screw them back together anymore. So at this point, we decided that it was probably a better idea to make sure that we put this in a long-term. We actually gave a little extra storage on those so that's actually going to meet the future in the event that we have more firefighters. So that one's going to be in 3 budgets. You'll find that in the fire prevention budget, you'll find it in the fire protection budget, and then you'll also find that in the EMS budget because all 3 personnel from all 3 budgets would be part of that. Ice rescue equipment. As you look around the city, we continue to put more and more detention basins in. And right now, as I surveyed some of the outside departments, I was concerned that we wouldn't have it. Hewitt Fire Department would be our essential one, and during the day, they told me that they may not be able to send any staff at all. If I'm counting on them to bring in ice equipment or ice rescue equipment, I'm gonna be in trouble when it comes to that. So we feel that we need to round out our ice rescue, because again, we do continue putting more detention basins in the city. We do have the ponds up in the upper area. Kids do get off, they do play on the stuff. People can walk out there with their dogs. And you see it relatively, if you were to peruse the internet, you find plenty of different ice rescue situations where that happens. My biggest fear is we're gonna get there and we're not gonna have the equipment available. Whereas once we did, because we did have that good mutual aid partnership, we still have a good mutual aid partnership, but they've just told me that they literally probably can't come in during that time, so. Firefighter rehab, this is a big part as far as the fire service. We need to make sure after about a 2-hour period of time, we just had one fire over at Forte. That fire was probably about 4 hours long. During that time, we really don't have anything set up for firefighter rehab as far as getting food there. At about the 2.5-hour mark to 3-hour mark, that's where basically the rehab policy, NFPA 1584 guideline actually says that you should probably provide some type of food for that. This allows us to have a line item for that, and then we're gonna set something up if this line item is approved with Quick Trip, so that we can actually have auto. If we've got certain people or a certain amount of people at the scene, we can basically call and say we need a number 1 or number 2 or number 3 to make sure we bring that together. The last item, thermal imaging camera, we took care of that last year. That one you're gonna see that as a 0. As you look down, one thing that they did do on 15FF is 53,600. That was actually split out. That used to be in the 53,500 budget. And I apologize, I didn't get the one number correct. It actually is 53,600, but they asked that we basically pull all the fuel away from our maintenance budget and put it in its own so they can track fuel better throughout the city. So we've definitely done that. The last line item would be the miscellaneous. And that was kind of covered in your letter. That'll be on 15GG. That's the miscellaneous line item. Basically, this is money that doesn't show up in our budget. And if I get this wrong, Jordan, please correct me. But it's a line item that doesn't necessarily show up. We transfer this money into the EMS fund to show the outside departments that we do pay from general fund for personnel. So it helps us to show that as far as transparency to for our contractual partners. And in addition to that, it shows that the city is paying some portion towards that. So 105,323 is that firefighter that was in the second quarter of 2024. And then the 256,903 is transferred through, and that is the money that we received in the referendum for the 2 personnel. So you will see them as a revenue in the EMS fund. And then basically it's a revenue, and then it shows as a deduction right away because it's a pass through. So that's the best way. And if you can answer that any better.
Yeah. I would label just for heads up going forward, transfers. These are, like the chief said, transfers from the general fund over to the EMS fund. One line represents kind of the council commitment from prior years as far as how much the general fund was providing to the EMS fund. And the second line is the referendum amount from what was voted on earlier this year. Kind of speaks to a little bit about what Commissioner Kirschman was talking about earlier with transfers from general fund over. So that right there is direct line item. So I would be happy to entertain questions if you have anything on
that. Any questions for Jordan? Okay, I can move into the prevention budget. Again, that top area that you find at 15JJ, that one is all the white section. Basically, they have 48,130, again, outside of our control. That's contractual language. And then also wages, retirement, social security, health insurance, dental insurance, and everything that basically is outside of our control. Once you get into 52,500 maintenance, it's going to be 15JJ, 15KK. And when you look at that one, really the only thing we had, and we already talked about the grease interceptor maintenance, that's the line item that was in there. As you look at 52,900, which is contractual services, anything that we have for contracts, you'll find 15LL and 15MM. You'll find that we have the annual service agreement. That one's going to show up in there. The other one, fire rescue one, Academy training platform. Basically, we took the $250 that was later on in the budget, basically added it to that line item and just consolidated them. So there's no increase there at all. And then we had the Lexington grant writing service, which I've already discussed. You'll find that in all 3 budgets. We did that, mostly in shipping. And then as you get into our travel staff, we did see that we could actually take one line item and consolidate it. That'll be on 1500. That'd be a child passenger and safety technician certification recertification. We basically took a few other line items and put those in there and just made one line item for the overall thing because it covers the entire program. Sometimes we have new personnel coming through that program. Sometimes we have personnel that we just need to make sure that we're keeping the certification up. So it just seemed to be a better fit for that entire line item. That was pretty much it in there. As you get into fire prevention education supplies, so down in 53,400, which is going to be 15 double P through 15 double S, we saw, it's basically where I consolidated one. You'll see on the operating supplies moved to fire prevention week. That's the very top line item in the 53,400. I moved it over to our fire prevention week education supplies on 15 double Q. So no change in budget. And in fact, this entire budget actually saw a decrease in the overall budget. Well, not a decrease on what we did for supplies, but an increase on the overall budget due to the fact that there was some stuff under control. We did see the dorm room dressers talked about that, and then we just three-speed fans. We already bought that this year. As you look down into fuel, again, this one's going to have, we have a lot of unleaded vehicles in that budget, so we have to have unleaded and diesel in there. We basically put that out, and then we concluded our car 5 slide out trade. When we looked at the emergency management budget, 52,910, the only change we saw in that entire budget was the Wisconsin Emergency Management Conference, which is on 15 double W. When you look at that one, basically we rounded that a little bit. We need to cover the 3 personnel that we have. We had enough money to cover just 1 registration, but we didn't have enough to cover the other 2. And that's a vital part of the system here in the city of Marshfield. It definitely reflects on multiple different departments, and we need to make sure that we're making that emergency management is a forefront of the high priority in the city. So that's where we felt that one should be. Other than that, those are the 3 budgets. I can turn it over to Deputy Chief Vegas. Deputy Chief Vegas basically works on the EMS or enterprise fund, and he can walk you through that budget. But before we start that, would you like to, is there any questions anybody had on this?
Any comment or questions for the chiefs?
Got a bunch. Going back to page 15 double E. Up at the top, we have shower. My question, are we replacing the entire shower, or are we just looking at the plumbing, the shower heads, and the valves?
Just the valves. Well, I mean, basically what it does, it takes the surround on that. The unfortunate part is when those were put in, they were put in a low density, and meaning that they had a low flow. Not that we want to get away from those, but what we found is it's very hard to find those parts again, and they fit that shroud specifically, so you have to build a whole new shroud and put all new plumbing in behind it. Once we do that, we're actually going to Delta faucets where they can be replaced very easily.
Okay. It's not really a question about budget. This is on your ice rescue equipment. I can see, I can understand the need for this. But at some point in the future, could we have a presentation at the department from somebody? Let us know how many of these detention ponds we've got, how large they are, how deep they are. And is this something that we should actually be going to the Common Council and seeking an ordinance for fencing? The other items, I commend the department for the increase in travel, leadership, and conference attendance. That's extremely valuable. Being on the airport flight path, I know what size aircraft come in. You're my neighbor basically, several blocks away.
Right.
We know what size aircraft are coming in here, and putting that aircraft incident training in here is an excellent idea. I commend you for getting into the local outlet that we have. That is excellent. And then on 15WS, there is a reference to the awards banquet dinner. Commissioner Meek and I, police department's activity, this, to say it's worthwhile is an understatement. This is an excellent activity, and glad to see we're catching up. Police department on that end.
Absolutely. Still a work in progress. We're hopefully going to have somebody this year, but it takes a little bit to put those together. The model is similar to theirs, and we just need to get the infrastructure there. But this is the ability to actually have the funding to do it.
And just as a side comment, having been at the end of the food line this past year, people eat a lot of food.
We'd be happy to share some lessons learned. Improved ours over the years and help you guys out as much as we can.
You want a motion to approve?
Oh, yeah, we just continue to do the enterprise fund yet. I think we can answer any questions we have before that.
Is there any other question or comment?
I got a question.
Yeah.
When we see like the things that aren't fixed costs, like the grease and all those other things, are we shopping around to get better pricing on those?
We did the last time, and we try to do that on an annual basis. But the last time we found OK Sanitary was one that we were utilizing here. They couldn't meet the needs of it, and really we were able to get a hold of somebody who was a little bit more efficient. Unfortunately, they're based out of Stevens Point, but they can be run on a regular basis when we need it pumped. We've kind of worked with that, but we do try to shop around and find out what the best pricing is on some of those things. Some of the things they're dictated by, like when you look at the MSA and SCBA face pieces, we buy MSA, but then you almost have to have the one representative from McQueen because they're the ones who service that in this area. If we go outside of that area, then you're talking about a whole service fee of windshield and windshield time. They don't charge us that. Basically, that's where we make up the cost on some of them. So some of them are fixed and we don't really have a choice, but other things like plumbing, things like that, like this last year, we just pseudo plumbing versus Rigel just for the fact that they were more cost efficient and able to respond. So we try to look at those things. But thank you.
I've got one question and one comment, if it'd be okay. Chief, when you met with the city, I know we just talked about this briefly, but can you kind of inform the commission what they're looking for in terms of expected increases in your budget?
Yeah, basically when we meet with finance, what ends up happening is they come across and say, we need to have great detail on that, but really they're looking for a 0% increase. Unfortunately, because we kind of showed on some part of that, there's not much we can do in a lot of that. And I think they understand that as well, but they try to like make sure that we stay to a minimum. So they've requested that, but at the same time, they've also said that if there's additional detail and you can actually prove that you need these and there's a need for it, they will certainly look at those. And then once we go through this process, if it gets approved here today, then that process would take us further into meeting with the city administrator and also meeting with the finance department to talk about that further to really discuss what needs to be. And that's where we come up with clarification of what we should be doing for the department. But like I said before, we always try to take it back to our mission and what the mission of the Marshfield Fire and Rescue Department is. And as we get our strategic plan put together in the future, it's going to be even easier to really present some of that documentation. That's why that's an important living document.
And I just one comment. I really like the presentation of how you presented the budget for three reasons. One, it's very comprehensive, and you provide a lot of color in terms of why the increase and why the reason for the ask. I think that's important. And then just as a reminder, after this budget gets reviewed by the city and finance, and if there's changes, we do want you to come back and have us take another look at it again too. So just as a reminder, we're going to want to see those changes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we can move on with Steve.
Okay, so for the enterprise account, essentially you guys have the budget in front of you. Just like the other budgets, everything highlighted or in red is a change, whether it's an increase or decrease. Going through the areas, again, I'm going to take a little bit different approach. And you guys have had a chance to review these. Trying to point out some of the bigger changes. The one off the top of my head in the maintenance area is going to be an increase to maintenance for the ambulances. That budget line item typically every year has been more for maintenance, oil changes, whatever have you. Tires are also included in there. In my time in this position, only this year we've had now 2 major engine issues with ambulances. It really were not covered under the budget, pretty big hit. So under the maintenance one, I did have a large increase for that section with the 2026 budget. Some of the other items, otherwise, again, a lot of the costs, like the chief has said, are out of our control. Most of the increases I have in here are slight increases due to contracts such as our heart monitors, the power load, the ambulances, use devices, those things. The maintenance goes up each year. Our oxygen bottle rentals, talked with the company this year. That was a little bit of a larger increase. I increased that part of the budget as well. Let's see here. The employee wellness retention, last year was the first year we had in the budget, or 2025. That was approved. That one worked very well. I think it's very important to make sure that the mental health of all the employees is taken care of. Essentially, that was a visit with a counselor for every employee of the department. Again, went well. We included it again in 2026 budget. Again, very small increase, but just got that back recently from that. Postage has gone up again, standard for everybody. Training, again, moving some of the training costs around. Some went down, others went up. Dues for going to conferences. The local conference, we have a trauma conference in Wausau every year that we try to send as many of our crews we can. We see the affected staffing the shifts. So continuing that, the chief talked about the spring and fall conference. One of the conferences were in the EMS budget. The other one added to equal the other budgets. And operating expenses, not a lot we can do with that. Go up. When you get to the end of 53,400, which is our operating supplies. Well, there we go. One of the requests we had from crews actually pertaining to some training equipment. We really don't have anything functional anymore for difficult airway training. They had requested that we get some specific training equipment in for difficult airway patients. So you'll see at the end of that 53,400, there is training simulators for both adult, child, and an infant difficult airway trainer. One of the things I actually did, including those in my budget, one of the numbers you heard from Jordan earlier about the long-term debt for EMS included a very expensive simulation mannequin. I'm actually pulling that, so that won't be included in the update numbers when Jordan gives those to you, and instead going with a less expensive route with these 3 trainers. But talking with our crews, they also believe these 3 trainers are going to be more benefit than the more expensive mannequin would have been. So it's a much better option. And then again, the fuel finance asked to break that out. That was changed. Did change it around a little bit since our newest ambulance is now a diesel. So we're using more diesel than we will gas. So I did change those numbers a little bit as well. Other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on any of the line items in there and explain why they're there.
Page 15, triple H, George Bob. National testing.
That's actually in all 3 budgets. The National Testing Network is how we bring in new applicants to the fire department. It's linked right on our website. It's also, I believe, on the city website where they can put an application for the department. That's just my portion of it for the EMS.
That allows us, with that one too, that NTN network actually allows us to do that 365. So we can open up a time, people can basically apply anytime of year. So instead of going through a process of search. So.
Any other questions for Steve Vegas? Okay, I guess at this point, I would ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
And a roll call, please.
Yes.
Pinker,
Yes.
Schutz,
Yes.
Meek,
Yes.
Hirschman,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, review and approval of proposed 2026 law enforcement department budget.
Okay, thank you. In your packets, we have our proposal for the 2026 budget. I could never do this by myself. Our budget team is Assistant Chief Besser, Administrative Staff Supervisor Gloria Crookstrom, Lieutenant Parks, and Office Coordinator Cindy Getz. I believe that together we have balanced our needs to service our community with the financial restraints that the city is under. Overall, you'll see an increase of 3.5%, much of which has to do with personnel costs or costs that we don't have much control with. I'll go through those in a few minutes. Similar to the fire department, we control very little of the overall costs of our budget. We continue to invest in our training and well-being of our staff. We believe that our service is very dependent on the the health of our officers, obviously, and also on the progression in their career and the education that they're provided. Law enforcement, like the fire department, is a very progressive field and one that changes often, and we have to stay current. We also pride ourselves on not only maintaining our law enforcement certification with 24 hours, but we also have a lot of specialties in our department, which makes us unique. As you know, we're an island community. So if we were to not keep some of the specialized certifications, that would require us to travel to complete some investigations that go to Wausau or Whiteair or other areas. We also have a strategy in an effort to avoid large costs on expensive items that wear. Things like rifles, handguns, radio batteries, radar guns, those sorts of things that are necessary in our profession that wear with time. As you recall, a few years ago, we were required to replace all of our AR-15s as an expense that we needed to take on, and it was quite a hit. So those sorts of items, we found that it's more palatable to have a rotation schedule so that we can keep good equipment in the hands of our officers and avoid those large costs when the equipment breaks. I think that the easiest way to go through this is if you have packets in front of you, we can start out with on page 1, where we have a breakdown of the cost increase. We have operations and maintenance increase 4.8%. Personnel expenses 3.3%, the overall expense increase of 3.5%. If you can turn a couple of pages to page 4, yes, we can start to break down. This is a lot of the things on this page you'll notice is a 0% increase. All the things on this page is basically things that we can't control in the police department. The increases have to do mostly with salaries. We had an increase in both union and non-union employees in our city, which causes the 4.6% increase. And as you go down the sheet, you'll also see that some of the benefits had also increased. Again, those are beyond our control. Continuing past page 5, which is the remainder of that side of the budget, onto page 6, we can start to break down these, and I'll do my best to point out at least the majority of the increases, but obviously if you have future questions, we can answer those after. Starting with the top one, you'll see a 55.6% increase in our professional services. Most of this is due to our on-site counseling that we had. Now, last year we received a grant. So the amount of money for that service was not added. So we added the $12,000 for the on-site counseling. That accounts for the majority of that increase. There's also, it's expected to have minor increases in other areas of professional services just due to the way life is. They have to increase their costs. Moving down, there's not other large increases until you get down to number 5320, which is our publications, subscriptions, and dues. These items are becoming a lot more popular in our profession. A lot of our, what used to be computer programs that we would buy are now subscriptions. A lot of our technology is bought through subscriptions now instead of actual items. One of the biggest increase in this area was that last year we switched back to Lexipol. So that was an increase in the budget of about $12,000. I think the other increases are relatively palatable, but that's the majority of that increase. That'll be found on page 17. The next one down, department head travel, would be found on page 18. That one is due mostly to the cost increase to travel costs. So there's an increase in mileage reimbursement and also some meal reimbursement that we had contractually. So we made adjustments in that area to accommodate for those. Moving down the line, 5340 had another fairly significant, it looks like I missed training and professional service development. I can look into that a little bit closer in a second. But if we could skip down to 5340, we had an increase of 5% in our operating supplies, and I'm going to dive into this one a little bit. We can go to page 19 for that. About halfway down the page, we have our friend Axon. Axon is, I grit my teeth every time we send the check because it's expensive. The problem is that there really is no comparison and we need them in our profession. So they do our tasers, our body cameras, redaction software. They're just the premier in the industry right now. We had to add the redaction software and we added body camera and licensing so that we can keep up with different areas that Axon covers. So that accounts for the increase of that about $10,000. It's kind of one of those necessary evils that we need to do. Down on the bottom of the page, we have our one-offs. So in our operating supplies, this is one of those areas that we do have more control over. So we focus on items that we feel that we need to do to provide a good service to our citizens. The airsoft conversion supplies, this is pivotal for our training. We've had airsoft in the past, however, the technology wasn't very good. They weren't very effective for training. We strive for realistic training. And we found that, and it's been proven that realistic training provides our officers with a lot better skills and they can problem solve a lot more quickly being put in those situations. These airsoft conversion kits would be for us to revitalize our airsoft program, and we could use those in mostly it's going to be used in areas where we have the active shooter training that we've been training with the fire department with. Vehicle lockout kits. Vehicle lockout kits are, they've improved throughout my career from the old, I don't know what you call them, the little stick that we used to stick in the window that, yeah, Slim Jims that worked about 6% of the time. We've got a lot better equipment that's available now. We tried out this particular type of equipment last year. We bought, I think, 2 of them, and they've been phenomenal. We don't have availability for locksmiths in this area. There's not very many of them, and I don't think any that respond off hours. So, some of them are responding as far as Cronenwinter to come to unlock windows or cars. So we found that these provide a good service to our community at a relatively low cost. They do sign a waiver if there's any damage that we're not responsible for that. And it's been a pretty good program for us. Moving down again, the next 2 will be rifle plates for the squad cars and rifle plates for our snipers. We don't have best capabilities to stop any rifles. This is Wisconsin, that's a deer hunting area, so many people have rifles. What we can do with this is we can have a rifle plate in each of our first responder cars, so that if we are responding to a gun call or suspected gun call, the officer can simply take that plate, drop it into their vest, and respond to the call. the plates are very cumbersome. They're not comfortable to have during day-to-day wear, and they're relatively expensive if we buy one for everyone. We found that this would be a good way for us to respond to those calls at a more cost-effective way. The rifle plates for our snipers, the snipers are also responding to these areas, and back when I was a sniper, we didn't wear any body armor, which was ridiculous. They progressed where now they're wearing body armor, but also do not have the rifle protection. So we want to provide that for our snipers. We feel that's an important safety item. The next one is the biggest item on this list is the SRT wired headsets. As I mentioned earlier, when we had to replace all of our AR-15s, we deduced that a lot of the cause our malfunctions with those weapons kind of narrowed down to our suppressors. Suppressors make the rifle wider, and it was popular at that time as a safety risk because when you shoot indoors, it causes hearing damage and a lot of things. So suppressors were an attempt to help prevent that. Removing the suppressors has caused a more risk to our hearing protection. We've also had issues with communication. So you can understand that not only in chaos, but in a firefight, communications would be hard to hear. We also have, it's necessary for communications to not be overheard in a tactical situation. So we have to have we've tried things like earpieces and other headphones and Bluetooth and just an array of different things. And we've never found anything that had the inability for others to overhear it and consistent communications along with hearing protection. One of our SRT members who is a vet and has knowledge about these particular types of equipment. These are a wired headset that provides hearing protection and consistent communication. We felt that it's necessary to add that onto the budget this year. It's a one-time cost. Of course, if something breaks, we'll have to fix it, but we figured that was a good investment because it does have the hearing protection and improvement in communications. Moving down is a little bit lower cost items. We have the Milwaukee tools are for our investigative units, the DSLR camera, another investigative tool. But basically what we find is that when we're on investigations like out in the elements where we don't have proper lighting, we don't have equipment that we can do those investigations. So Lieutenant Parks has said that these would be a little bit more consistent in providing that service. Some of the other items are a little more lower cost. I'd be willing to expound on those if needed. On page 20 is repair and maintenance. That decreased 95%, and Chief Mueller mentioned this, that the city wants to isolate gas. Gas is the biggest expense in that line item. It's moved, and then there's a new line item on page 21 that is just our fuel. That covers, Travis, do you have a chance to look back at the 5333, training professional development?
That was what had primarily gone up due to changes in spurs, meals, and mileage reimbursements is when it increased.
Kind of the same. I feel that breaks down a lot of our increases. Obviously, I'm happy to answer any questions before your approval.
I got just a couple of questions. You had budgeted the same amount for overtime as you did the previous year, even though, like I'm sure you had some officers that were out on medical, but you think the 150,000 is going to be enough?
That's a conversation I often have with our finance, and it's really a moving target. We just don't know. We're trying to find ways to trend that, and I don't know that we've been successful. So to be real honest, Commissioner Gershman, that's our best guess at where we're going to be, and we hope that we're going to fall into it. And if not, I have to make adjustments next year.
And then just to follow up for comp time and holiday time, shouldn't we increase the ask to represent what the increase was in their wages this year? Because it looks like it's the same number.
We can definitely take a look at.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be great. And then you talked a little bit about mental health counseling. Do we pay that per visit, or is it just a flat fee? Can you just kind of dive into that a little bit?
Sure, it's a flat fee that covers all of our staff. So it's we do the mandatory one-time check-in, and that covers all of that.
Okay, great. And then WPPA critical incident, that's a new item. Can you tell us a little bit about that too?
Yep, we added that. I actually discussed that in a meeting earlier this year. That is the service that's provided to our non-represented officers that are still responding to calls. This came after a conversation I had with a representative from League of Municipalities, our insurance company that would cover us in these areas. Essentially, what happens is that there's statute that requires the city to cover us in a work-related critical incident. But what's happening is that there's nothing on retainer that's provided by the city. And so if our officers are involved in a critical incident, what cities are finding is that they're behind the 8 ball because that liability protection isn't happening right away. And so there's a higher chance for payouts and more chance for officers to not protect themselves or protect the city in that initial investigation. What this does is it only is available to our non-represented officers, and it allows us to, for a very small fee, have all the coverage if we call. So essentially, if we call on one incident, I would estimate that we're probably covered in about a decade of premium or costs for this service. It's a phenomenal service, and I think it protects the city and the department.
So really, it covers future liability. That's part of the reason, I think, initially, at least from my impression on the prior meeting, that you're just excited about that.
I'm sorry, if we're involved in officer-involved death, then the WPPA would come in and represent us throughout that entire process.
Yeah, that's the way I understood it too, and I'm glad you refreshed us on that. Can we talk a little bit about the flock cameras? And I've read a little bit about that, and I know a lot of communities are using them. Like they're not without some apprehension by the community. So I really would like to have an understanding of how you're going to use them, and then also, do you have the manpower to actually monitor the feeds on those cameras? There's also a lot of privacy issues that some people seem to have concerns about too.
That's a good question, and there are flock cameras available that are working in this area already. Flock cameras are a subscription-based program, so that would be a reoccurring cost every year. But what they can do is use AI to find different types of vehicles, and we can enter license plates into that so that it can flag on those. They'll have license plate readers where they can flag on license plates. So we can use them if perhaps, say we have a robbery and we have a license plate that happened here in Marshfield, we can enter that into the flock system, and then that will flag, and then it'll send a notification to officers. We don't have to monitor. We're not monitoring those systems all the time. We're entering information into the systems to flag us if those things happen. Where they become if the camera detects that information that we've entered into the camera. Where they become most useful is when we have silver alerts. If we have someone with dementia or just drives away, and this has happened several times throughout my career, where we have an elderly person who lives far out of the community that has no idea how they've gotten here. Well, if we give a silver alert, we can enter in the known information in the flock camera, their vehicle information, that can notify us where they are. So these systems aren't a monitoring system. We're not having anybody to watch for anything in particular. We don't write tickets off of flock system. They really are a tool that we can use to enter information in and be flagged when that camera detects the information we entered.
No, I mean, I think there's a huge advantage. I just think a follow-up to that is, do you see us expanding the number of cameras in the community? That'd be my first question. And what are you going to do from a public standpoint to make them aware of what the cameras do or don't do? And I think that's important terms of being transparent with the public, what those cameras are actually doing. We're not looking, literally for traffic citations or someone running a stop sign or a light, but more as a public service. Have you thought about that a little bit too?
We don't have any up right now, and to be honest, I haven't talked about how we would be transparent because they're in so many communities right now. But there's certainly things that we can discuss, and that how we can explain to our citizens what we're doing, the purposes.
Yeah, very good. That's the only questions I had. Thank you.
Any other questions for Chief Geary?
Yeah, Chief, on page 8. I may have asked this. For Park Patrol, how does this compare to other communities that use this? And is there any split in cost for Parks and Rec?
We don't have any split in costs with Parks and Rec at this point, to my knowledge. We have designed our program to fit our community the best that we can. So I don't know how it compares to others, but we found that this covers our Park Patrol, and also we have just a couple of civilian transport, actually one civilian transport that would also be paid out of this. So we found that it fits for our city, I guess, is the best way that I can answer your question.
And then over on page 13. Already answered the question about the critical incident. On the third line down, interpreter service. Who is providing that? Has this always been a flat rate? Is based upon usage?
This is a budgeted amount, so that the actual usage can vary. We don't know how often we're going to be using this. Most of the times that we interpret, we would have like language line that goes through Wood County dispatch. We can get a language line that helps us with that. There's been some instances where we've had investigations where we were able to utilize DCI to help us with it. One example we had was the homicide last year. We had DCI was able to do it. This is our budgeted amount that we just have in case these services come up. But we've been able to find other ways to do it. So there's not one person that we do. We have this in budget to find interpreters.
And locally, are we sending people out training funds for language training in basic terminologies?
Well, most of the training that we're sending to people with is the, for lack of a better term, tactical. Those where officers can give commands like stop, hands up, that sort of things for those tactical situations. So we can isolate the incident and then find a better interpreter. I don't know that anyone is learning Spanish, so to speak, or learning a different language. We have several different languages in our community, and to learn all of them would be a lot.
And the only other thing that I just referenced is on page 17. Way down in the middle. You've spoken several times about solar. During the last 2 weeks, I was home recovery, surgery, and opportunity to watch a lot of court TV. I was totally amazed at what Celebrite could do. Literally taking things on cell phones, literally taking things down like a tenth of a second as well as So I'm glad to see this being used. I really assume this is being used. Much to our benefit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Move to approve the budget.
We have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Pinker,
Yes.
Schutz, me,
Yes.
Gershman,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes. Thank you very much, guys. That's a lot to go through. And, you know, I kind of jumped the chief this morning before the meeting. And maybe prematurely, but I really wanted to make sure that there's clarification and detail on these budgets. And I think you guys did a wonderful job. Thank you very much. Items for future meetings. Some of the things that were taken off of today's agenda were strategic planning, and mainly just because we had a lot to get through today. Budget's very important, and strategic planning is kind of long term. But now we're through this portion of our budget. You guys want to bring back strategic planning in the coming months again?
Is it, just point of clarification, I think we've got it for future item agenda. Are you okay with what's on there? And then we'd have one more presentation in September.
Yeah, I think we kind of agreed to have yours kind of split up a little bit.
Okay.
So we can, you know, clearly identify those changes in position. I think so.
And then the policeman, do you want to bring in on the office too?
I would kind of prefer we do one at a time. Just so that we can get it all correct. So I don't need to put you on the back burner about it. But that way we can kind of stay on task and go down the list and go down the line and make sure we get them correct. That's my opinion. Some another commissioner might have another opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else?
I'll bring the dates back in August, or is already got this.
Okay. Okay, with that, I think we can adjourn for the day. Thank you very much.